made it real. Like we said, okay, like this is, like you have to answer to New York City Audubon, and we're saying the standards now. It's not just Professor Kemmerer that's saying the standards now.
I mean, it's better for you. So if you look here, where it says ingredients.
We've become much more science-focused, working with anatomy and physiology, obviously, so it was really a gap that we needed to have filled, and this has been a great partnership to help us fill that science and technology gap.
So it really expanded a lot more beyond the classroom. It was really the community, and that's what this whole program is about.
Service learning has three basic components to it. One component is that there's a service component. You're helping some community-based organization, you're helping some other group to satisfy genuine needs that they have. The second part of service learning is the learning, so service-learning. It's a single word, we hyphenate it, because we're combining that service with the learning that the students do.
So, for example, myself, I volunteered at a school with autistic children, and what that allowed me to do is to relate how these autistic children learned and perceived different things, such as feelings, pain, visual effects, and how I can correlate that to my studies in anatomy and physiology and how the brain actually functions.
I think it's the learning in action. It's putting to use. Because it's one thing to have knowledge of information, but then to be able to put it into use for the benefit of others, where it becomes not only important for the student themselves to learn the information, for them to be able to teach or to help another person using that knowledge has the greatest impact.
So how do we measure that learning? There are a lot of ways, but the most important part is the reflection, because reflection is what we would consider the third part of service learning. Service, the learning, the reflection.
Their ability to reflect is completely based in the quality of the assignments we give them. We have to invite them and create the conditions for those reflections to be high quality.
So you really have to make it central to the course and have a central assignment that's critical to the students passing the course, and it has to connect to other aspects of the course. For example, in my case, we read Barack Obama's, Dreams from My Father, and it's a great book. And what happened was, it's a 350-page book. It's a really hard book for ESL students, but it was very much wrapped up in the service learning project. So the themes in the book related to the service learning project that the students were involved in.
Okay, the project we worked on today was, it's called the Word Perception Program. The Basic Skills Learning Center asked us to have a program where we flash one word, it disappears, 5 answer choices come up, and the students try to pick the right choice that matches the word. And most of the students in the class have never done any programming before. So I know they've learned because they're writing a program that works and works well and does what the assignment asked them to do. Just today, one of my students came up to me where he really had no idea that people would like his program. And there certainly were some criticisms about it, but the professors and students genuinely liked what he had done. He was all smiles. He couldn't believe how much they liked what he had done. And he, again, 3 months ago, he'd never done any programming before, and now he's written a program that people like, and he knows how he can improve it.
One of our course objectives was for students to become familiar with sociological theories. There were 2 main sociological theories that we actually targeted for this food drive. The 2 sociological theories were the conflict theory and the feminist theory. But now they're actually putting their experience in a theoretical framework. So they're not just looking at the food drive now as just the food drive. They're looking at the food drive in terms of, okay, so how does Emile Durkheim explain the need of a food drive? They're not only walking away with the concept that, hey, look, we did a food drive, but they're walking away with the concept that, wow, all these theories that I learned in class, they're actually useful.
The reflection is something that we see. You know, I typically have students write essays. I ask them directed questions. They respond, and I can see how they are connecting what they're doing with what they're learning.
And the kind of writing that my students did in reaction to a question about the service learning experience or part of their service learning project was, you know, stronger writing than I've ever seen from a 205. 205 is our highest ESL level. A 205 writing student. You know, students were writing 10, 12-page essays about their service learning project, and that's very hard to, it's really hard to get a paper that long of that quality from our students. So, you know, so you could look at the standardized test, but you could also look at the kind of writing, the quality of the writing that the students did during this course.
I have to constantly check and recheck to make sure that while we're doing good and giving back, and there's the objectives of my syllabus are being met, curriculum requirements, learning outcomes are being met, because it's not academically effective if those things aren't happening.
Going into service learning at first, I was kind of a little nervous. I wasn't too sure what to expect or what was expected of me, but I just tried to do my best to make some kind of connection between what I was studying at the time and what I was actually doing.
And I feel that it works for them. They become like a team. And that's the way I like to teach. I consider myself their coach. I did coach speech and debate in high school years ago, so I feel that I'm their coach and they're a team, and I want them to rise together, to work together for success. And that tends to happen. They tend to become friendly, and I think that they really do get something out of going out in public, showing students at another school, this is what I learned. And we've even done it on campus on health fair days. They performed and done demonstrations showing what they have learned and using their public speaking skills. So I think it's a valuable asset to a student's education here.
Well, for my students, I use it with an English 101 class. So that course, you know, basics of academic writing, and, you know, the focus is on writing. But I think the skill of speaking and interpersonal communication is something that I've really been working on with the students. I find that the students that are doing poorly in the class academically, when it comes time for us doing the service learning project, they're more excited, they're more engaged. You know, it's something different, it's something more exciting, or it could, you know, it's intimidating, but they're pushing through.
But the service learning, because it's so concentrated, I've made it so with the reason that a lot of students really come to the fore when they're put under a little bit of pressure. You got to put a little pressure on them. You don't put a pressure and, you know, discourage them. You encourage them, but you put a time frame pressure on them. And some of the students have really come through. Some student I didn't know had it in them really did a very nice project for last semester dealing with elevator going up and down to the end for handicap requirements. I didn't think of that. We're talking about ADA requirements are very important.
Normally my students draw each other, young adults, or sometimes we have a model that's also a young adult. And so it was a great opportunity for us to have children to draw. And my students learn about the difference between child and adult proportions, but there's a range. Most of the children in the service learning project range in age from 8 or 9 to as high as 16. So it's just a matter of assuring them, and because of that project, they are so attentive. They learn so much more effectively because of that fear that they may not do it well enough. So they take advantage of every opportunity. We do many practice portraits before the children come, and they work with a level of concentration that you don't see outside of service learning.
At this point, I don't know how I taught programming without them having a project and an actual client, because if I'm the one doing the criticizing all the time and it's on a project that's not very interesting, let's just say service learning makes my job a whole lot more interesting. So it's a little bit more difficult, I will have to admit that, but it's a lot more interesting.
This is important in a community college where students are coming from high school. They haven't yet acquired a knowledge or a sense of their independence as learners. As adults, they're still transitioning into that role.
Having this kind of feedback where students report this is something that is staying with them. It's not just they're doing the service learning project and then it's sort of evaporated. It's maintaining, and it's continuing in some type of domino effect that, to be honest, I mean, I wasn't really anticipating, but that's the outcome. I mean, that's what anecdotally I'm finding.
I have 3 students who, from doing service learning, it was in an intro to lit class, and we did GED tutoring for the literature part of the GED exam. So these 3 students that I had, fall 10? All 3 of them got involved in student government. And one of them is now transferred to Queens College. He's an English major at Queens College. And he spoke very eloquently at a CUNY conference, at one of those Gen Ed conferences, about service learning transforming him.
So when the service learning projects begin, there's this automatic maturing process that happens. Students who may have been a little more playful in class suddenly have to take on the role of the adult in the relationship. They are the host for the children who come to take part in our project. So to see them suddenly take on that role of the host, of an adult, of a person responsible for making another person feel comfortable, it's a wonderful transition to witness. It's a transformation, really.
I actually see their attitudes and dispositions towards the profession change.
Service learning, to me, was something more than I could just put on a resume or say that I did. It was an experience that I think I would hold and cherish due to the fact that it provided me with an extra set of tools that maybe other students may not have, to actually be more sociable, and as well as to go out into the community to meet different people, see different things, and have different experiences. I definitely felt that, to me, was what I obtained from service learning the most.
They've done something important, and they didn't know that they could do that. They didn't know that they can be agents of change. They didn't know that they can make a difference in other people's lives. A lot of students are at the point in their life where things are done to them as opposed to they are doers and they can do for others. So I think it's a major realization for a lot of students. And I think it's a growing process, and I think that it's something that stays with them for a very long time.